Hi, y'all. Welcome to Beyond the Deals podcast with me, your host, Gabrielle Simmons. I'm here with a special guest today. I say that for everybody, by the way, but you are special. And before I introduce our guest, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Builders Outlet. Builders Outlet is your go-to for windows, doors, trim, and cabinets. They're here in Denver, Colorado. You can check them out by going to buildersoutletco.com. All right. Also with Builders Outlet, they do custom. So check them out for all your custom needs. Dominic, I'm sure that you will want to check them out yourself as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell us who you are and what you do. I know you are a serial entrepreneur. So share with us a little bit about your background and the businesses that you're in.
Sure. About my background, like how deep do you want to go?
How deep you want to go? I'm here for it.
So for some context, I guess you could say that I haven't always been an entrepreneur. I've always had the entrepreneur mindset, but I've actually been a employee for over 20 years. So it took me a long time to arrive to this point. But when I was an employee, I was in construction. So I think that's probably where I got, the most of my skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Construction is so dynamic. I've learned so many things when I was there.
Yeah. I remember when we met at, I don't remember the name of the place, the big, nice building that has multiple restaurants in it in Denver. We met there for a meeting.
Yeah, it was a hotel. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were kind of sharing with me some of your background in that space. And you guys did was it like fire prevention or
yeah.
What was it that you guys did with that?
Yeah, so for a large portion of my construction experience, I was in fire protection, which installs fire sprinklers, fire alarms. And it might sound, kind of corny, like nobody ever really hears of it.
No, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. Like if you dig into it, like we're installing for these high rises downtown, we install these large diesel fire pumps, and that's kind of like where the system begins. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of stack large pipes all the way to the top floor and then branch out with fire sprinkler systems.
Yeah.
And then we have fire alarms that tie onto those. So it's a pretty intricate system.
Yeah.
And like my wife likes to make fun of me because every time I see a building that I worked in, I'm like, I built that building. And she's like, sure, but
you protected that building.
Yeah. So, but I had a large part of, a lot of the newer buildings in like Rhino. I've done a lot of things in most of the historic buildings downtown. So, it was cool because fire protection took me all over the place. Like I've seen a lot of the inside of a lot of these older buildings that most people won't be able to see. So yeah, that was a cool part. But yeah, fire sprinkler was definitely a large part of my construction among many other things that I did in construction.
And so that's kind of what gave you the itch then to get into real estate? Is that kind of how that transition went?
I'd say so. It wasn't necessarily like the main thing that compelled me to get into real estate. I think that I was exposed to a lot of people that were making money. Mm-hmm. So as I'm in my monkey suit, turning a wrench, I see a lot of folks coming in and out of these buildings that are, dressed nice, drive nice vehicles or whatever. And also I was very curious about what they did and like, where did I go wrong? Why am I here? They're there. So it definitely opened my eyes to other opportunities. So I did begin at an earlier age, like in my mid-20s, I did start to understand that, there was more out there in the world for me than what I was doing. So
yeah,
that was definitely one of the things amongst others.
Okay. So what did that transition look like for you, getting out of construction and into the real estate space and or your other businesses? I know there's...
Yeah, so I think as far as getting out of construction, there was a whole scenario that kind of, I had my back against the wall at one point, and I needed to make a change. I'm not an employable person. I'm not. I've been fired from every job that I've had. And yeah. And I cause a ruckus. I just don't fit that mold. You know what I mean? So I never really had any tenure at any place that I stayed at. So that was always very problematic for me. It was like I was always looking over my shoulder, like, when am I going to be fired and yada, yada. So I needed to find something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it was around 2015 when I really started digging into learning about real estate. And I started learning about wholesaling first.
Okay.
That was like the first thing that kind of grasped my attention.
Nice.
I didn't apply it for a few years after that, but I think that's kind of what drew me into real estate, was just the whole prospect of, you know, making money in real estate and not being a realtor. Like that was for me at that time was intriguing.
Yeah. And with that, sorry, I just want to make sure that our listeners understand. A lot of people don't know what wholesaling is, right?
Right.
So let's break that down. Like, explain what is wholesaling and why was that something that you decided to pursue first?
Sure. So wholesaling is essentially buying, you know, distressed property at a discount, getting it under contract, and then selling the contract to an end buyer.
Right. Selling the contract.
Yes.
So we're never, as a wholesaler, like for those of you who don't know, who are watching, I have a background in wholesaling too. I've done lots of wholesaling. So as a wholesaler, we never have to buy the property.
Right.
And that's usually what makes wholesaling super attractive, especially entry level, especially if you don't have a lot of capital.
Especially when you're poor.
That part, to get into wholesaling, because you don't ever have to buy the house. And you don't, most of the time, you don't even need to have your own money for earnest money to lock in the contract. You're just getting that property under contract at a discounted price, like you said. And then you're selling that paper, the contract, not the house.
Exactly. Yep.
To the investor who's going to. Of course, you're selling it to the investor for more than what you got it under contract for. And then that's how you get paid as a wholesaler. It's just, you're the middleman or woman.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, so continue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at the time I wasn't like making the bread that I wanted to. So, and I was broke. So I was like, what's the best way to make money out of nothing?
Yeah.
And that's why that was so intriguing to me. And then I was a little afraid to jump into real estate at the time just because I didn't know anything about it, which is kind of odd because I'm usually pretty fearless about things. But I had this experience in construction. So I decided, as opposed to jumping into real estate right away, I decided to start a construction company. So I started a fire protection company that was running pretty decently, and we're making really good money for a while. And then I got sick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I got sick, and then I had to shut it down, and then I had to go back to being an employee.
Man.
Yeah, which was like my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But because I was so sick, I couldn't do anything laborious. I couldn't do anything on the physical side. So the company that hired me back brought me in under sales. So, and then like that was my first shot at sales, right? So I guess that was the element that I was missing that was going to give me the confidence to jump into real estate, right?
That's like a blessing in disguise.
So I was loving it because not only was I doing something new, I wasn't a laborer and I wasn't treated like a laborer.
Right.
You know, I was actually, you know, bringing in revenue for this company. And I brought in a lot. I think the last year I was there, I think I sold like $44 million in contracts.
Wow. And so you were commission based?
I was commissioned, yeah. And the last straw for me though was like after I sold that much for this company, I had made maybe $80,000.
Man.
Yeah. So I was like, you know, obviously wasn't very happy. And I decided to jump into real estate right away. So I convinced my wife, and I had been trying to convince her for a couple years to jump into real estate with me because she is a phenomenal salesperson. Like if you were to put the top 10 salespeople into one room with her, she would kill them all.
Really?
In my opinion. And I think a lot of people's
You're
opinions.
a little biased.
I am biased, but I mean, if you know her, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, she got it.
yeah, she's a beast. So I'm like, yo, like, why are you doing this when we could be doing this, you know? So it took some nudging. It took a couple years to convince her to get into real estate. And then finally we both looked at each other and we were like, fuck this shit. Like, let's jump into real estate and just like be the masters of our own destiny.
Yeah.
So we both quit our jobs, jumped into a commission only situation, and like we had no choice but to make it.
Yeah.
So we became realtors. Our backs were against the wall, and I guess, you know, a lot of people were kind of blown away by our production our first year, but
because you guys were motivated. Like you're like,
Yeah,
we have kids, we have a house to take care of. Like we're not out here clay. We're gonna get this money.
Yep, exactly. So, I mean, we went balls to the wall our first year. I mean, we've been going since we started.
Yeah.
I think that was just kind of like what it looked like for us and for me as far as the transition from construction into real estate.
Yeah. And I'm excited to have your wife, Chantel, on the podcast. I think we're doing it next week. And she's also one of our event sponsors for our Real Estate Deal Makers Mixer, which is tomorrow, but you guys will be watching this later. So yeah, I'm excited for her to come out and share her story too and talk about, you guys have the staging business too.
Yep.
So that's exciting.
Yeah, but this episode will probably get more views and ratings, I'm pretty sure. Just
because it's you.
Because it's me. Yeah. But if you wanted to get more ratings, you should have had us both at the same time.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
I know.
Well, she would talk all the time and I wouldn't even have a chance. So
Yeah, we got to give you a little bit of a
I
spotlight.
need the spotlight.
So you guys became full-time real estate agents and crushing it like your first year. Then what? What came next for you guys?
So, you know, as a realtor, as a first year realtor, you're scrambling to get leads. You're scrambling to make money. Like, so you're doing everything you can to find that next sale. So for her, it came natural. Like, she's a very nurturing person. So she was getting deals from family members, friends, you know, her sphere of influence.
Right.
And me, I'm this rugged construction worker, like blue collar guy. And like, you know what I'm saying? So sales for me in real estate was a little harder. So I had to, I actually had to start, you know, with investors. Like, I was just like, you know, yo, I know construction. I know a little bit of this, a little bit of that. How can I help? You know what I mean? So I just started developing a network with local investors or people I thought were investors in the beginning. And I started, you know, selling their homes and at discounts. And, you know, for me, that was just my foot in the door. Like, I wouldn't recommend that anybody that's a realtor sell for a discount. But for me, I was just trying to get my name out there. I was trying to show what I could do.
And what do you mean by that? Sell for a discount?
So what a lot of realtors will do is they'll discount their commission.
Okay.
Yeah, in order to get a deal.
Right.
And a lot of investors won't hire a realtor unless they're discounting their commission. And we don't do that shit anymore.
Or a flat rate or something. Yeah.
Nah. Like, if you want to hire us, you're paying the full. You know what I mean? Because we offer the full suite of services. And, you know, it's been proven that you'll get more money by hiring somebody like us who knows what they're doing, you know, has marketing and sales skills and stuff like that. So we definitely don't do the discounting anymore, but I did in the beginning. And I learned a lot of lessons from it. So one of the main things that I learned was that I didn't want to be a realtor anymore. Yeah, I hated it. I hated it because I don't like, you know, I'm not a service guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have patience to take people house to house and present to them the different rooms and the lighting of each room. And could you imagine it? Like, it just wasn't me. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I grew impatient with it. And I quickly realized that investing is where I needed to be because it's very black and white.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's just like, the numbers. Either the numbers make sense or they don't. So
and I loved it.
Simplified.
Yep. So I love that about real estate. So I started basically, you know, picking the brains of investors that I knew and started learning different ways. Again, being poor, being broke. I was like, how can I get my hands on a house now? You know what I mean? So like, I need to get my first investment under my belt. So that's when I started learning about Subject 2. And that's when I started my career as an investor. It was by acquiring property Subject 2.
Nice.
And I learned Subject 2 from you and Pace Morby and, you know, a couple other people out there. And
Yeah.
I quickly adapted to that strategy and excelled in it. And then from there, I decided I wanted to do fix and flips. So got a couple fix and flips under my belt and still going strong with that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you've transitioned into a different space, you know, because a lot of real estate agents don't. And not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. If you love being a real estate agent, like, be great at it, rock it.
Absolutely.
But I've experienced where a lot of agents who are afraid to get into that other realm, it seems so unknown, to buy and hold or to fix properties, like a lot of them show a lot of interest, but don't really take the leap, you know, to get into it. So I commend you for actually getting educated, you know, first and foremost. I know you guys invited me to come out and speak to the brokerage and do a little creative finance class. And I know we sat down and went over quite a few deals and stuff together.
We did.
Yeah. And then, you know, you didn't just jump in. You were getting educated. And did you become part of the sub 2 group with Pace Morby?
No, I got kicked out. Yeah.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a schmoozer. I'm not a bullshitter. You know what I mean? Like if I could just call it like I see it, and my people didn't like that. So
Right.
that's fine with me.
I'm not part of it. I've never been part of it either, but I know most people who know of Pace Morby, they usually sign up to be in the sub 2.
Yeah. And then it was like, to be part of like this upper tier group was like $20,000 and yada, yada, yada. I had people that were in this group that were just giving me the contract. So I was like, what would I pay for that for?
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
Which I'm sure they're not supposed to do.
What they did.
So tell us, what is sub 2? What subject to, right? Purchasing a house subject to the existing mortgage. What is it? And what did your first deal look like?
So subject to, again, it's another way of getting your foot in the door when you're broke. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the best, you know what I mean, when you're broke, because you're kind of putting yourself, you know, you're opening yourself up to some potential risk and litigation and stuff like that. So you definitely need to know what you're doing. But yeah, subject to is essentially like, kind of like wholesaling, where you're looking for a distressed property, but in this scenario, you're looking for a distressed homeowner. So somebody who is, you know, potentially in arrears on their mortgage or pre-foreclosure, you know, things of that nature where, you know, they are at risk of going into bankruptcy and that going on their, or foreclosure and that going on their record.
Right.
So you come in, you know, and save the day, essentially. You're off of that service and just say, hey, I can take over your mortgage. And then you just kind of, you create a contract with terms that are enticing to them to where they would want to let you take over their mortgage where they stay on it.
Right.
You know? So
Like a down payment, not usually an upfront payment to them of some sort is usually of interest to them, the seller, right? Or sometimes we'll structure subject twos where we offer to give them monthly payments, right? Like even if it's something low, like $50, $100, I call those like in good faith payments.
Right.
Like we're taking over your mortgage. We're going to make sure it's paid directly to the bank every month, not to you. But additionally, you know, a lot of times we're buying those subject twos with no equity.
right.
And so we don't necessarily want to come with a lot of money up front to give to the seller. But so it's like, yeah, well, since we can't come with 10, 20, 30 grand as a down payment to you, we'll give you $50, $100 a month
Right.
in good faith. So, you know, like we're here, we're making these payments, we're paying you. It's all good. Right.
And that's what's cool about subject too is like you can, I wouldn't say manipulate, but you could create terms that are great for both people. Right? Like, you know,
You can be very flexible in how it's structured.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's why it's creative and that's why it's cool. That's why I love subject too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You helped me get my house subject to my
Yeah.
current house.
Yeah. So what would you do with it? What did that deal look like?
So we bought it for $650, I believe.
Is this which house? Because we looked at a couple.
The one in Midtown. And
I'd have to see pictures.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Okay.
I don't want to tell anybody my address.
Yeah. Oh, that one. Okay, that you were looking for your personal property, not a renter. Yes, I remember.
So initially we were listing the property. We were the listing agent. So this is kind of rare because the rules have changed and you can't do this now technically. As an agent, you're not supposed to, depending on what kind of financing they have. I think it's if it's FHA, Fannie Mae or anything like that.
So much has changed. The rules for subject twos.
Yep. So you can't as an agent, you can't do a subject to transactions with those types of financing. So we won't get into any of that because this happened before then.
Yeah.
But essentially, we were the listing agent for this property, and it was in a horrible market at the time. Nothing was selling. And my sellers were like, we just need to sell this joint like ASAP. Like, what can you do? We dropped the price several times. And it was a beautiful home. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just a horrible market. And then they brought it to me. They're like, why don't you buy it? And I was like, and we lived in Littleton, which was like 45 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
So we're established in the South. So I didn't want to move here. You know what I mean? I was like, it's not necessarily, my ideal location.
Right.
And subject to wasn't really the first thing on my mind, really. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to help them. I wanted to get them the money that they needed to sell the house, or wanted to sell the house so they got the money that they needed, right?
Yeah.
But they kind of pressured me and they're giving them an offer. So I was like, all right, I'm going to give you an offer, but you're not going to like it. So I gave them an offer and I got the house. They're all about it. They're super cool.
Did you just present to them a subject to offer? Did you have multiple, was it an option to say, we can buy it cash?
No, because I was only interested if for myself, if it were a subject to a deal because their mortgage terms were great.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, the potential equity in it was killer. I negotiated a great price. So when I sell it, we're going to sell it this spring. We're going to have a huge bag.
Be in a good position.
Yes.
Awesome.
And that's what subject to is all about. So we're going to go take that money and go get a house back in Middleton.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Well, I'm glad I could help you guys with that.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Yeah. No problem. So have you done some fix and flips, or you're actively looking for some? I know some distressed properties to flip as well. So subject to is a focus of yours to buy and hold.
Correct.
Right? More long term. And then do you also do renting per bedroom or traveling nurses? How do you rent out those properties when you buy and hold them subject to?
Sure. So right now my strategy is long-term rental only because it's simple for me. We're so high paced with our businesses that I don't have time to do those hyper strategic, rentals. I don't have time to do a pad split. You know what I mean? I think it's a great strategy. I just don't have time to sit there and do it. You know what I mean? Midterm rental is something I've always wanted to do, and we were actually going to do this with this property, but once we realized how much equity is in it, we realized that we wanted to sell instead. But for subject to, that's always going to be a cash flowing scenario for me. I'm always going to, I need at least $800 to $1,000 cash flow monthly for it to make sense to me.
Yeah.
So
okay, you have to be one of the few people that I've spoken to in recent days that's long-term rental. Because, right now, especially here in the Denver market, it's mortgages, the cost of homes is so high that if you're buying in any way, even creative, typically your mortgage is so high on a buy and hold that you need to rent it per room for it to make sense, for it to cash flow. So, looking at you guys doing long-term rentals, that means that you're in a position where those mortgages aren't too high to where you're still able to cash flow a little bit, and that's amazing.
Yeah, so we're very picky with what we pick up for subject to.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't fit our criteria, we'll probably pass it along to somebody else who's interested in something with, lower cash flow or lower equity, but it's got to be a huge equity play for us or a huge cash flow play for us.
Right. With that, before I know I asked you about fix and flip, and then I totally went into something else. But based on what you just said, I love that you mentioned if it doesn't fit our criteria, we're gonna look to pass it off to somebody else, right? So you can still wholesale.
Yep.
And that's what I love about real estate, right? Is like you get in where you get in, wherever that is. Like for a lot of us, it's wholesaling. And then you build up to doing these other things and getting braver and taking on more risk and earning more money typically. And then you still have this stream of tools in your back pocket that you can use at any time because you've done the work in that area. So you're not like a wholesaler. You don't really wholesale as like your primary gig. But as an investor, you're like, if it doesn't make sense for me, if it doesn't fit my criteria, I'm going to wholesale it off to somebody else.
Absolutely. 1,000%. Yeah. So, I mean, as of recently, that's kind of been one of the skill sets that I've been fine tuning, only because I'm getting so many deals. You know, like, as you know, we can't take everything on that we come across. Like, I have 2 flips going on right now. And like, for me, little old me, that's my threshold. Like, probably do maybe 3, but once I do more than that, my wife's gonna, she'll be taking me out by the knees. But I think that, that is an amazing tool. I'm glad I learned that earlier on, because since that, I've developed myself into, I would say, a pretty decent wholesaler when it comes to needing to wholesale a deal, because I know my numbers. Now I know the process, and as an end buyer, I know what is a good deal and what isn't, as opposed to, full-time quote unquote wholesalers, so I'm not, when I do wholesale something off to somebody, like, it's something that I believe in. It's going to be something that I would personally take on.
Yeah.
So I'm not just trying to get a transaction.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that. Speaking of, don't forget that deal we looking at together.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, I like it. It's a good one.
If we can do something with it or wholesale it together, I love working with you and doing deals with you. So
yeah, keep them coming.
Yeah.
And I have more buyers in the Springs area and down south now that I'm expanding. So so there's always opportunity down there. Me personally, I won't do any deals down there. Just
really?
Yeah. I mean, we were gonna pick up one at Fountain, but it just turned into such a nightmare that it turned me off to the whole situation.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it was just like, if it were in Denver, I could deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I could deal with, because it's in proximity.
Yeah.
But because it was down south and I was having to go down there,
like an hour and a half away.
I was like, yeah.
I'm a truck driver, so I don't mind. I'm like driving up over here every day. It's no problem.
I got narcolepsy or something, so 30-minute drive and I'm passing out.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, so keep your deals up here.
Yeah.
I have another one in Fountain we can look at.
Okay.
To do whatever.
Would love to look at it for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about your flips. Is there a flip that you've done thus far that stands out the most in your mind, be it because it was really great or maybe a struggle bus flip that you had to learn a lot of hard lessons from?
Yeah. I mean, every flip is different. And it comes with its own set of good and bad, right? So, I mean, they're all very interesting. And we learn a lot, right? But I would say my first flip probably sticks out the most.
Can you break it down for us? You don't have to give addresses, but
yeah,
purchase price, how'd you get the funds for it?
Sure.
Yeah, break it down for us.
So as far as the deal breakdown, let me see if I can remember it. Because I literally have so many deals per day, everything's just kind of a blur right now. But I think the ARV at the time was about $725, so that's what we would sell it for. And I think we purchased it in the low 500s, maybe 515.
Nice.
But so this was my introduction into fix and flips. I knew a buyer, and I had no intention on flipping it because I didn't have the resources at the time. I was broke. But because of my experience, this buyer was like, maybe we could partner on it. I was like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Tell me what I have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was hyped. I was like, this is our opportunity.
Mr. Non-employee. I can't work for nobody, but you're like, I can work with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be a high stakes partner for sure. So basically the way it worked out was, it was a very tight deal from the get, because it was my first time finding a property for somebody. and then kind of like us turning it into a flip, right? So I didn't really have the numbers down like I thought I did. The budget went over like immediately, like as soon as we started like getting contractors in there to, you know, bid on the actual work, we like very soon knew that like we were kind of going to be over budget. Yeah. And then, so my job in the partnership, which wasn't technically part of the contract, but I volunteered this because I didn't bring any money to the table. So I was like, what can I do to, you know, kind of make these people feel comfortable that I'm involved, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I've been a project manager on construction projects for years, so I'll step in as that. And immediately the contractors that we hired were just assholes. They didn't want to listen to me. They knew I wasn't the money guy. So any decisions, they wanted to go straight to the money partners. They completely circumvented me. So that kind of like ruined the whole deal, like the whole project. Like it just turned it sour, and it was just like everybody's mad at each other, everybody's pointing fingers at each other. And then, yeah, when it came to selling, we lost money, and it was like, I mean, it was just a horrible experience as far as like as a first flip, you know what I mean? But it wasn't a horrible learning experience. Like I learned a lot from that.
Absolutely.
I learned a lot about contracts. I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about myself. And now because of that experience, I move differently. So I do partnerships here and there, but I'm very picky with who I partner with.
Yeah.
And then my deals there's got to be a lot of fluff in there for me to pick up anything. So that way we can, you know, mitigate any variations that, you know, the unknowns and whatnot.
Of going over budget.
Yeah. And then also contractors, you know, one thing that's kind of crazy is because I come from commercial construction, I know how to negotiate contracts. I know how to write a contract. You know what I mean? And in commercial construction, as the customer, we are the captain of the ship. We provide the contract. We provide the terms. If you, the contractor, wants to work with us, you have to abide by what we're offering.
Right.
In residential, it's not like that. In residential, contractors, there's no oversight. Contractors are the captain.
They run in the
Yeah, they run. And so as you can imagine, somebody like me comes into the scene, and these guys are like, what, you know, like they don't want to listen to me. They're so used to just doing whatever they want, charging whatever they want. Most of the contracts I've come across are just, you know, scammy. You know, they're unilateral contracts. I'm not sure if you know what that means, but it's like, they're like one-sided contracts.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, I think I know what that means.
Yeah. So it's
benefits one party more than the other.
It benefits the contractors, and they're just kind of charging whatever. So when somebody like me comes into the picture, they're like, there's a lot of like friction.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I know my shit. So now
you're not going to take their shit.
Yeah, exactly. So so now when we interview contractors, I let them know from the jump what it's going to look like, and this is your chance to you know, take a hike. Otherwise, you got to play ball the way we play ball.
Yeah.
So as far as like how we move now, like, you know, we've got a very strict process on, you know, how we pick contractors and what contracts we use. And yeah, I mean, I think in many ways, we're putting the power back into the investor, how we do things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of investors are kind of at the mercy of these contractors, so they're not necessarily in control of their investment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or being as picky as they would like to be.
Exactly.
Because they feel like the contractor has the most control in the situation.
Yeah. So for us, our business model anyway for fix and flips is like we control everything. You know, everything as far as like all the terms are concerned. You know, the how change orders happen, and you know when people get paid, how much they get paid. You know, so
yeah, and it's good that you, because of your background, you know, you understand the importance of presenting all that up front. You know, like, hey, let's take out the guesswork for what's going to happen later on. This is what's going to happen from A to Z. So they understand, like you said, if it's not your scene, bounce. You're not the right contractor.
Yep.
Because you can find the people who will, be in alignment with that.
Yep.
And that's the way to go.
Yeah. And I want to shout out West Iron Construction. They're amazing. We're using them on one of our flips now. And West Iron Construction, Marcos Martinez. We've used several contractors before, and we don't typically have many issues with people. Usually like they stick around and they kind of like bend to our will or whatever. Mm-hmm. But these guys have been, not only have they've been like playing ball with us, but like they've met every expectation that we've had so far with them. And it's like, this is why it's important to do these things, right? Because you want to find the right fit. We'll see how, the long-term relationship goes, because you know how that works. Yeah. You have to have some longevity.
Like dating. Everyone's great in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like,
so we'll see how it goes. But no, they're great people. They're a great construction company. I just wanted to shout them out because like as far as like, setting the bar with professionalism and doing things the right way, like they've exceeded everybody that I've met so far. So
love it.
Yeah.
Love it. I want to touch on like the mindset piece behind all of what we've talked about, and how important it is as an investor, as a wholesaler, as whatever it is that we're doing, as an entrepreneur, right? Like working for yourself. You gave multiple examples of how things didn't work out the way you thought they would, or that you wanted them to. You had to adjust. You realized you didn't like being a realtor. You didn't like showing houses and stuff, right? With wholesaling, you're like, all right, well, I want more. I want to do more. I want to actually be the investor. And being the investor, like seeing the difficulty that's come with that, and having a deal that you work alongside somebody else not go well. But regardless, you're like, all right, we're going to just improve on that, And I think people who aren't entrepreneurs or who are afraid of entrepreneurship, the example I like to give them is like, okay, if you're unhappy at a job, what are you going to do? You're going to leave. You're going to go to another job, right? So same with us in business. When we're working for ourselves, it's like shit's not always going to work out.
Right.
Just like when you get a job, you're not going into it with some kind of guarantee that you're going to be there and make all the money you want to make for the rest of your life. There's not that guarantee with a job either. And we're seen as crazy because it's like, damn, like you took that much of a loss. Like you lost properties, you lost 20, 30, 50, $100,000. Like I could never. And it's like, well, but you do, like you take losses too. We're just willing to brush it off, learn, and then go apply that to do better.
Yep.
Like they would to a new job.
Exactly.
So I commend you for that. Like most people who I admire in this business, you have that grit, that like dedication, like, hey, this isn't working. I'm going to do this. Hey, I don't like this about the situation. I'm going to go and I'm going to, do something else.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that, a lot of people have that. And I'm really noticing, and this goes with the age-old adage, like keep people around you that you want to be like, right? So, I have some really great people around me that have that same kind of grit. And it took me a long time to find those people because when you're, when you're rough around the edges like I am, there's not many people like you know what I mean? So, or many people that are like, allow you into their circle. And I've got some great people, like my mentor, Michael Griffin, and his wife, Brianna. My whole team at Wealth by Real Estate, like these guys have all accepted me for who I am. And like, because of that, I'm confident now, you know what I mean? So I can be gritty. I can be rough around the edges and still, maneuver professionally in this industry. So yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything else you would like to share with us? I'm happy that we've had this time, since we're both super busy. We haven't had a lot of time to really connect and for me to even learn your background, but I'm glad we've had this time to be able to do that. Yeah. Anything else you want to share with us?
I mean, at this time in my business, we're expanding in many different ways. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur. My wife's an entrepreneur. you're going to learn more about her and, her things that she likes. So we have the staging business. She's, the captain of that ship. I have no design skills whatsoever, so I can't take any credit for that. She's killing it. We're also doing design consultation.
Nice.
That's also hers.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is we're providing a full service for people, and I think that's what's missing with a lot of real estate is you kind of have to piece things together when you're taking on a venture, whether you're, remodeling your house, whether you're selling your house or whatever the situation is, you're having to find the different, professionals to help you and bring them all together. Well, we're kind of bringing everything together. So we're kind of a one-stop shop. So
nice.
When we list the property, I started Team Legend Media. That's going to be our media company where we're doing like all dope videos, Instagram reels.
Yeah. And I've seen some of your work, like the pictures and videos on properties. You guys do stellar work.
Thank you. Yeah, that's my boy Darian. He's got all the skills there. Like I'm just like showing up, you know what I mean? But so we're doing that. We're doing listing photography, listing videos. So that's Team Legend Media. Also, we're gonna highlight some legends, right? Legends in any industry. So that's kind of like our niche is we want to bring people in that are like setting the bar for humanity and we want to highlight them. So it's not necessarily like real estate focused.
Right.
And we're so new, we're little babies in the industry. So we're just trying to get our footing there. But in due time, you'll see us and you'll see more of our progression as far as that's concerned. With the real estate, obviously always, we're always available to help people buy and sell their homes. I think we do an incredible job. And I think if you Google Alexander Company, you'll see we have, I think, over 500 5-star reviews or something like that. And that's on me. Did that.
By yourself.
Just kidding. No.
Not with shit.
Yeah. If you look,
Even though
That's like
maybe once. Yeah, she's like, everyone's like, Chantel. They're like, oh, Dominic's cool too. It's like, damn it. Oh, so
He's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So we have Alexander Company. That's our primary real estate arm. And then, I'm always buying. I'm an investor and an entrepreneur at heart. So
What area are you primarily looking to purchase? Like if somebody has a good deal, or one of my junior wholesalers, if we want to keep bringing you stuff, what area are you looking at?
So definitely not Fruta, Colorado, wherever the hell that is.
Fruta.
Yeah,
It's like way.
if it's got a weird name and like you've never heard of it, don't send it to me. Yeah, I get a lot of those deals. It's so weird. It's like, have you ever been to Lone Star, Colorado? I'm like, nah, bro. Like, yeah, pass that one on. But Denver metro area, like that's my thing.
Okay.
Like, anything in the Denver, just because that's where I know. I'm born and raised in Denver. It's just, it's easy for me. Mm-hmm. I'll sometimes stray, down south and do some stuff in Colorado Springs, Castle Rock, or maybe Boulder and Longmont and Fort Collins. But again, if it's got a weird name, I don't want it.
And urban areas, you're not interested in anything rural out there in the country kind of thing?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, urban's probably the best. I really love like Golden, Arvada, Applewood. Like those are my favorite areas, Littleton. So if anybody has a distressed property in those areas, give me a call.
Yeah.
Or reach out to me. You could reach me on Instagram at any time at Recession-Proof.
I love that name too.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you haven't changed that. Like over the years, people often change their names and stuff, but you kept that.
Yeah.
Recession-Proof.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so you want to know the story behind that?
I do.
Well, it's not really a story, but it's like kind of like the concept or the philosophy behind it. So, a lot of us entrepreneurs grew up poor. It's not a new story. You know what I mean? So I think where I've grown to thrive in business is my ability to thrive even when there's a recession. So when we first got into real estate, there was like this big looming fear that a recession's coming. A recession's coming. You see all these realtors freaking out like the sky is falling. And I'm like, cool, let's do this.
Right.
Like, I'm digging in, you know what I mean? And that's where that name came from, is just like, I'm like, recession is where I thrive, so bring that shit.
I love it. It's like there's a quote, I don't remember who said it, but it's like when people are fearful, like that's when you go in, you know, and when people are all rushing in, that's when you should be fearful.
Yep.
Like, you know, it's okay to be digging in, like you said, during a recession, because there's a lot of opportunity in that.
Yep. Pretty sure Warren Buffett said that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I could be wrong though.
Oh, well.
Just want to sound smart for a second. But I have heard that, and I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah. Awesome. So we can find you on Instagram, Recessionaire.
Yep.
How else can we find you?
If you want some media, you could find us on Instagram for Team Legend Media.
Team Legend Media.
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty simple. If you need to buy or sell a property, you can reach us on Instagram again, Alexander Company, or you can find us on Google. And we have a website for that, which is pretty much our umbrella website, which is alexander.net, alexandercompany.net.
Okay.
You can reach us for anything, any real estate needs that you have. If you're an investor and you're looking for a property to buy, if you're just a first-time home buyer and you're looking for a property to buy, like we provide the full suite of real estate services.
Yeah.
Staging, photography, all that stuff.
All that under Alexander Company.
Yep. Excuse me.
Sweet.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show with me
Thank you
today.
for having me. This was fun.
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
We'll do another one at some point about some deals that we do together.
Yeah, that would be awesome, actually, break it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in today to Beyond the Deals podcast. Until next time.